I never expected to fall for a mafia king, but his love was just a haunting shadow. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stood in the alley, heart racing, surrounded by whispers that echoed like gunshots. They came for him, and for me. The cold embrace of fear wrapped around my throat as I watched shadows dance in the dim light. Every beat of my heart pulsed with dread. He appeared out of nowhere, tall and clad in darkness. His eyes, a storm of secrets, pulled me in. Alessandro. The name sent chills down my spine. I knew he was dangerous, but the way he held my gaze made me forget everything else. In that moment, nothing else mattered. I felt alive, and yet, I sensed the lurking threat. Growing up, I had always craved excitement. My little town was a cage, a tiny world where nothing ever changed. My parents, sweet but worried, always reminded me of the dangers of the unknown. But Alessandro was the abyss calling me home. I was drawn to him as if he was the only light in my dark world. Then came the night when I found him bleeding in the alley. No one else heard him gasping, but I did. I shouldn't have helped him. I couldn't have known how entangled we'd become. From that moment, we shared stolen moments, breathless kisses hiding from the world. He'd pull me close, whispering promises that felt like a warm caress. But whispers of his past haunted us. The name of his family wrapped around us like barbed wire. I met fear in their eyes, saw shadows lurking in every corner. I wanted to escape, but each time I thought I could, he'd take my hand and pull me back. His world was dark and cruel, yet I was captivated. Then the night came when his enemies found us. A sharp crack echoed through the air, and my heart dropped. I turned, and everything froze. The gun, the fear, it all hit me like a freight train. Run, he shouted, but my legs felt like lead. In the chaos, I saw a figure, someone familiar. Betrayal twisted my insides. How could they? I thought of all the lies, realizing I didn't know who I could trust. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. Shadows loomed closer, and just like that, everything I knew began to shatter. What would I sacrifice to save him? What lines would I cross in the name of love? I never thought I'd be at the center of such chaos. As secrets unraveled before me, I felt the very ground under my feet tremble. Was love worth the risk, or was I just dancing with a shadow? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The alley was no longer a refuge, it had morphed into a haunting memory, etched deeply into my mind. It felt as if the shadows surrounding me were alive, whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. I stumbled away from the chaos, my mind racing, heart thrumming against my ribcage as I desperately searched for a place to gather my thoughts. How had everything unraveled so quickly? How had love tasted both like freedom and a noose tightening around my neck? I found myself in a park, the moon casting silver beams through the trees. The fragrant scent of blooming jasmine filled the air, contrasting sharply with the murky memories of the alley. Moments spent with Alessandro flooded my mind, the laughter, the passionate kisses, the nights when we dared to dream of escape. I pressed my palms against my cheeks, as if I could physically will the images away. The sound of footsteps snapped me back to the present. I turned, half expecting to find the looming shadows pursuing me again. Instead, it was a woman wearing a tattered coat, her face lined with years of hardship yet softened by a warm, gentle smile. "Are you all right, sweet girl?" she asked, her voice like a soothing balm. I wanted to tell her everything, to lay bare my heart's burdens, but the words clung to my throat. Just, lost, I managed to whisper. She nodded knowingly, her eyes glimmering with understanding. This world can be a hard place, but sometimes kindness shines the brightest. It's okay to feel lost. She reached into her pocket and offered me a small, delicate fleur alone bloom that had somehow thrived amidst the cracks in the concrete. Take this, she said. It symbolizes hope. Never forget that even in shadows, beauty can flourish. I accepted the flower, touched by her unexpected kindness. It felt like a lifeline, an emblem of resilience. Thank you, I said, my voice breaking slightly. I will remember. But even the beauty of the flower couldn't quiet the storm within me. How could I protect Alessandro when I didn't know who to protect him from? Who could I trust? I had tasted betrayal, and the sharp bitterness lingered on my tongue. Doubt coiled around my heart, mingling with the love I felt for him. I yearned to find clarity, but every thought was clouded by fear and uncertainty. I thought of the figure I had glimpsed in the alley, a familiar face that shattered the feeble trust one had begun to build. Could they truly betray me? Days passed like a blur, each one an exhausting cycle of pretense. I interacted with my friends, tagged along with laughter, yet my heart felt heavy. I was surrounded by familiar faces, yet I felt utterly isolated. Alessandro was still missing, hidden away from the world he had dragged me into, a world I had chosen. I wasn't sure if I had the strength to embrace what that meant. That I walked the crowded streets, clutching the flower in my hand, constantly glancing over my shoulder. Was that a shadow creeping behind me? I was so painfully aware of my vulnerability, my heart exposed without a shield. But then, a message came through on my phone, the familiar jingle igniting a flicker of hope. It was a simple text: meet me where the city meets the sea. I need you. My heart raced, it was Alessandro's words. I gripped the phone tightly, staring at the screen as if it could conjure him from thin air. I knew I should be cautious, but the magnetic pull of his voice eclipsed my fears. I had to go. I had to see him, to find out if love could outweigh the darkness that shadowed us both. As I made my way to the destination, the wind howled around me, carrying an ominous note, the kind that made the back of my neck prickle. Was it too late for us? When I arrived, the sun had begun to set, casting a warm glow across the waves, but my heart sank as I spotted a figure not too far away. He stood alone, but my joy faltered when I noticed the other shapes scattered around us, lurking in the shadows. My chest tightened, dread pooling in my stomach. Were they allies or foes? I called out to him, desperate to reach him, but the look in his eyes told me everything I needed to. No pain, anguish, but, above all, a hint of fear. Get back! He shouted, but it was too late. An unfamiliar voice sliced through the air, sharp and condescending. You thought you could hide from us forever, Alessandro? Everything froze. My heart pounded fiercely as I realized the lengths to which our love had entwined us in a war I never intended to enter. The shadows were no longer simply whispers but fierce warnings of the chaos that was about to unfold. This was just the beginning, and I was caught at the center of it all, a pawn in a game played by shadows. Would I be able to survive what was coming next? The salty breeze swirled around us, wrapping my fear and uncertainty into a tangible presence. I stood frozen at the edge of the shore, staring at Alessandro, who looked like a man torn between two worlds, one shrouded in darkness, the other blindingly bright with hope. The urgency in his voice echoed in my mind, pushing me forwards even as my instincts screamed for me to turn back. Don't come any closer. His words were hollow, heavy with an unspoken desperation. Please. The shadows from behind him seeped closer, illuminated partially by the fading light of the sun. They were clad in dark jackets, their expressions unreadable but their intentions all too clear. I could barely breathe, panic clawing at my throat as I took a step back. Why had I come? Why had I trusted in love when it clearly painted a target on my back? Alessandro, what's happening? I could feel the tears threatening to spill as I took in the chaos around us, the fierce desperation in his eyes shifting into something darker. Nothing that concerns you. The unfamiliar voice roared again, its energy vibrating through the air with the weight of long-held grudges. Another figure emerged from the shadows, his face strikingly familiar, the figure I had seen in the alley. It was Marco, one of Alessandro's closest friends, now turned specter of my nightmares. Get away from him. My voice cracked, fueled by a mix of instinct and desperation, but it felt smaller than the crashing waves. Alessandro remained firmly rooted in place, but his gaze flickered between me and Marco, torn between his feelings for me and the allegiance he owed to the forces I didn't understand. Damn it, Clara, you should have never come here. Alessandro's anguish pierced through the tension, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. You have to leave, now that I know. I won't leave you. I felt emboldened, an unyielding wave of love crashing over my fear like the tides rolling to the shore. I took a step forward despite the danger, wanting to bridge the chasm that threatened to swallow us whole. You think this is a game? You're in over your head. Marco interjected, his voice laced with derision. This isn't just about you, sweetheart. You're playing with fire, and people get burned. A dread certainty blossomed in my chest at his words. I had stepped into an elaborate chess game, and I was the unknowing pawn. But the more I thought about turning away, the more the steel resolve wrapped around my heart. I couldn't abandon Alessandro, not when the stakes were life and death. Whatever this is, whatever you thought you were protecting me from, I need to be here. I pleaded, glancing at Alessandro, trying to penetrate the darkness swirling inside him. I love you. I won't let anyone take you from me, not even your own demons. His expression faltered, a crack in the stoic facade he wore. The momentary flicker of hope made my heart flutter, but it was drowned quickly by the deepening shadows encircling him. Do you think love will save you? Marco scoffed, gesturing to the figures behind him, who seemed to tighten their ranks, advancing like menacing phantoms. Love doesn't hold a candle to this world. You're only making it worse for him. As my heart raced, I stole one last glance at Alessandro, my chest tightening with anguish. I could see the battle lines drawn on his face. He was suffocating, caught between the ferocity of his world and the purity of my love. There was a flash in understanding where fear and desperation twisted into resolution. Clara. Alessandro's voice broke through the mounting chaos, eyes fierce. Get to safety. Before he could finish, a figure lunged from the shadows. Time slowed as adrenaline surged in my veins. I shouldn't have been here. I shouldn't have ignored the warnings. I couldn't watch him suffer, knowing I was the cause of his turmoil. Run. He shouted again, and in that brief second, the world erupted into chaos. Something cold and sharp flashed before me, and the air exploded with tension. A darkness threatened to swallow us all, and I felt every ounce of my being crying out for light, for clarity, for hope. My heart hammered as reality spun like a drunken carousel, and in the midst of the storm, I made a decision. That I won't let you fall, I whispered, even if that meant I had to stand my ground against whatever shadows dared to approach. But just as I steeled myself for what was to come, a blinding light erupted, unexpected, dazzling, and piercing through the gloom like a beacon. We all turned towards it, momentarily stunned, as a sleek black car screeched to a halt nearby, blocking our escape. The door swung open, and a figure stepped out, casting a long shadow that danced across the sand. My breath hitched in my throat. Was it salvation or further destruction? The uncertainty loomed heavy as I prepared to shake away the fear and embrace whatever hope awaited in the uncharted waters ahead. But deep down, I knew this revelation would carry the weight of heartbreak, entwining our fates even deeper into the web of shadows. The darkness was gathering around me, but even in the unknown, I felt a flicker of light. Would it guide us, or set fire to everything I hoped to protect? The figure stepped out of the car with an air of authority that sent shards of unease rippling through my veins. He was tall, exuding a confidence that was unsettling amidst the chaos. The shadows seemed to retreat slightly around him, as though in deference to his presence. I glanced back at Alessandro, whose expression had twisted from sheer terror to a kind of resignation I had never wanted to see on his face. Leo, Marco's voice was low and suppressed, a wary acknowledgement of the newcomer. In that moment, I understood that this was no mere man, this was a player in the very game I had stumbled into, and I was wholly unprepared for what came next. Get away from him, Marco, Leo commanded, his voice a dark rumble that filled the air with tension. "You're outnumbered, and you know it." His eyes never left Alessandro, locking onto him with a fierce intensity. For the first time, I registered the flicker of recognition in Alessandro's eyes as he met Leo's gaze, a mix of fear and relief tangled together. "What do you want, Leo?" Alessandro's voice was steady, but the tremor beneath it suggested the turmoil brewing inside. "You're not welcome here, welcome or not, I'm not leaving without you," Leo replied, taking a step closer to Alessandro, his air of command palpable. I watched as those shadows Marco's comrade shifted uncomfortably, seemingly affected by Leo's authority. The grip on the chaotic scene around us seemed to loosen for an instant, and I grasped that this man held more power than I could fathom. The renewed intensity of emotions lay thick in the air, a smothering weight that pressed down heavily on my heart. I could see the invisible thread pulling between Alessandro and Leo. It was the kind of connection that hung suspended, filled with unspoken history and burdens that weighed heavily on both of them. "Clara," Alessandro's voice broke through my thoughts, his gaze shifting towards me with an intensity that made my heart leap and shatter simultaneously. "You need to go. Now that I know. I won't leave you." I felt the swell of my determination surge again, even as the crashing waves drew ever closer, threatening to engulf everything I held dear. "If you think you can just send me away, you're wrong. Leo will protect you," he insisted, clenching his jaw, an unyielding wall constructing itself between us, despite the tempest of emotions swirling just beneath the surface. "Please trust me. This is about more than you understand." That I stepped forward, my heart racing and overwhelming my senses. "And what about you, Alessandro? Are you going to let him just take you away?" The desperation in my voice was palpable, and I could feel the tears threatening again. "You mean everything to me. I won't let fear keep us apart. Sometimes fear is what keeps you safe, Clara." His voice was a storm now, battling against the weight of what lay ahead, a reality I couldn't begin to decipher. Leo's sidelong glance cut through the tension like a knife, his eyes assessing me, measuring my resolve. "You're brave," he said slowly, surprisingly calm despite the maelstrom unfurling in front of us. "That's a dangerous quality to have in this world. If you're to stand by Alessandro, you need to know the stakes and the shadows that follow him." "What do you know of our shadows?" My words were sharp, defensive. I couldn't let him undermine what I had felt between Alessandro and me, even in the midst of all the confusion and dark entities looming close. "It's not my presence you should fear, but the demons that lurk within our circle," Leo replied, tone cool and measured. "You must understand that love is not a shield against the darkness, it can also attract it." That I took in a breath, desperately battling against the fear seeping into my veins. I thought of the dreams I had woven, the future stamped in the stars that had once felt so close, yet now seemed a million miles away, shadowed by uncertainty. Marco, who had stood still as a statue, finally shifted, seething with anger. "This is ridiculous. You think he'll choose you over us? Over his own blood?" There was a wicked edge to his tone that sliced deeper than any blade. "You're just another fleeting moment in his life, Clara. The shadows will always win. I forced the defiance into the air around me, igniting hope in the bubbling cauldron of despair. "I refuse to be another moment. Me love for Alessandro isn't a game. It's a choice, and it's stronger than you realize." Alessandro's gaze bore into mine, fraught with countless emotions: fear, love, sacrifice intertwined in a weighty braid of uncertainty. "You don't understand, Clara. It's not just our lives at stake. You could lose everything." The ground beneath us shifted as time seemed to contract, suspending the imminent danger in a stasis where only the weight of words held meaning. Each heartbeat pulsed like a drum against the echoes of impending fate. "Then tell me what it will take," I demanded, my voice resolved, ready to face the shadows, come what may. "I won't walk away without knowing I gave us a fighting chance." Leo regarded me with a newfound respect, crossing the threshold from incredulity to intrigue. "You're stronger than I anticipated, Clara," he admitted, an edge of admiration creeping into his tone. "Strength isn't enough," Alessandro murmured, fear flickering in his eyes. "And knowing the truth could shatter us all." Before I could respond, a gunshot cracked through the air, reverberating like the explosion of thunderclouds. The world erupted into chaos once again. I spun around, heart pounding as I caught a glimpse of Marco, hand outstretched, shock painted across his face. Marco. Alessandro's shout was drowned as panic erupted, the world dissolving into screams, chaos, and darkness all around us, washing over my very soul. The shadows were closing in. And with every ounce of courage, I felt the grip on our fates tightening, drawing us together yet threatening to tear us apart. Would I stand my ground in the face of darkness? Or would I lose him to the very shadows that sought to claim him? In that fragmented moment, I suddenly understood. What lay ahead was a test of love, a battle against the unrelenting tide, and if fate had its way, I might have to pay an unimaginable price. I was no longer standing on solid ground. Instead, the world around me had unspooled into a chaotic whirlwind. The echo of that gun showed a cold and malevolent sound had shattered not just the fragile peace within us but also the delicate threads holding our fates together. Panic surged through the crowd, a palpable wave as bodies rushed to find safety away from the epicenter of violence. I could feel the dread pooling thick in my stomach, as heavy as the evening air thickening with dread. All around me, fear spilled into frantic shouts and pleading cries, but none of that mattered because my eyes were locked onto Alessandro. "Get down!" Leo's booming voice echoed just before he surged forward, instinctively moving towards Alessandro, his expression now fiercely protective, a far cry from the authority he had been wielding moments ago. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, rooted in place by the sight of Marco, wide-eyed and frantic. I noticed blood blooming across his shirt, stark and crimson, as disbelief washed over him like a wave, dragging him further into shock. "I didn't mean," he stammered, voice faltering, the playful menace of before completely evaporated. "Clara." Alessandro's urgent shout sliced through my reverie. "Come here." Suddenly, the noise of the world around us became muffled, as though someone had pressed the mute button on life while the chaos continued to whirl. My heart hammered in my chest, each beat echoing Alessandro's name, urging me to break free of the trance that held me spellbound. That I tore my gaze from Marco to where Alessandro stood, determined yet terrified. I felt the magnetic pull drawing me closer to him, and my feet finally obeyed. "Hold on!" Leo shouted, grabbing Alessandro's arm. But before they could move, Marco stepped forward, bleeding yet defiant. "Stop!" He held up his hands, each gesture pulling the tension tighter, the air fraught with possibilities. His eyes, once sharp and full of venom, were now awash with an emotion I never expected to see: regret. I didn't mean to get away from him." Leo's voice broke through the chaos, his grip tight on Alessandro's shoulder as if to shield him from the person he had once called a brother. "A brother?" I tried to breathe through the confusion rising in my chest. My mind raced with questions that felt like jagged shards. This was no longer the world I had thought I knew. It was convoluted and dark, practicalities twisted by emotions stronger than any bond should allow. "You don't understand." Marco's voice cracked as if each word was a smear against the guilt blossoming within him. "I've been caught in this web, Clara. I thought I could escape, but escape." Alessandro's voice trembled, fury and disbelief mingling. "You think this is about you? About your twisted sense of loyalty?" He gestured towards Leo, whose steely facade only barely masked the turmoil rippling beneath the surface. "You're risking everything, Marco." "No, I risk everything for the people I love," Marco countered, desperation bleeding into the strength of his voice. "And I've lost too many already." He glanced sideways at me, eyes pleading. "I couldn't lose you too, Clara." I know what Leo can do." The revelation hung between us like a dense fog, thickened with uncertainty and twisted fates. What had I gotten myself into? My heart pounded, battling against the rogue pulse of fear crawling up my spine. Each move around us felt choreographed to the rhythm of impending doom. In the shadows lurked uncertainty, preparing to snatch away everything I had grown to cherish. My future with Alessandro loomed like an insurmountable cliff, and each moment we lingered only fueled the relentless pull of gravity dragging us closer to the edge. That I felt the grip of Leo's hand around Alessandro's shoulders firming, as if tethering them together against the storm brewing in our midst. "We need to go. Now. This isn't over, Marco, but neither is it safe here." Before I could fully process the situation, the air caught fire with tension. Marco stepped forward, feigning bravado even as his eyes darted toward the chaos unfolding. His hand, shaky yet resolute, reached out towards Alessandro but stilled mid-air, and then it happened, something I hadn't anticipated. Alessandro, the bravest of us all, took a step back. "No, Marco. We need to end this," he urged, his voice low yet laced with steely resolve. "You can't keep dragging people into this fight." In that moment, I realized Marco was lost, trapped in a game of loyalty that had turned fatal. The love he professed for his brother was twisted, tangled by betrayals and shadows, a love that could no longer save him from the unseen predator lurking just beyond the periphery. "I won't let you," Marco pleaded, desperation unraveling his composure. "I can still fix this. I can save you both." But the shadows loomed larger, drawing nearer with every second, the ticking of the clock echoing in the background, an ominous reminder of the choices peeling away like old paint. "Fix this?" Alessandro's voice was a whisper now, stung with heartbreak. "You think there's still a way to fix this?" Marco's shoulders sagged, and for a moment, I believed he might finally understand the weight of consequences. "I'm sorry," he murmured, but the words fell flat as anguish shadowed his features. "I'll do anything. Just tell me." Before the thread of understanding could weave itself into something stronger, an explosion rippled through the night, a surge of fire erupting from a building nearby. Light danced in the air, illuminating the fragments of shattered lives. The chaos reinvigorated the crowd. People screamed and scrambled, shoving against one another as chaos erupted anew. And in that fraction of a moment, Marco turned, seized by a desperate need to protect, to reclaim some semblance of standing in the maelstrom. "No!" I screamed, lunging forward as he sprinted into the fray. I barely grasped the gravity of my own voice, my instincts overpowering rationality. "You know nothing of the darkness you're inviting." As Marco's figure faded into the chaos, his desperation pushing him recklessly toward the fire that could consume him, I turned back, gazing into Alessandro's eyes, the impossibly piercing light of my heart amid this shadowy turmoil, but his gaze was shadowed now, as realization dawned across his features, spiraling into the depths of something I feared the most. The truth was never safe, and perhaps our love would carry the cost of a war we had never asked to fight. "Clara, we have to survive." Leo's voice broke through my thoughts as he held tight to Alessandro. "We can't lose you too." But it was as if a knife had sliced through the fabric of my being. Betrayal lingered upon the fringes of anguish, not just from Marco, but from the very shadows that accompanied us. I felt winded, rooted in my resolve yet torn in ways I couldn't articulate, and as I prepared to move, to rescue whatever remained, the air thickened with the weight of truth lingering just out of reach, barbed and tantalizing. In that chaos, I faced a new revelation, a singular, penetrating thought that washed over me like a wave that wouldn't recede. The shadows didn't just threaten to claim Alessandro, they whispered dark truths that may very well reveal the depths of my heart. Take the truth about love caught in the clutches of a relentless game, that I wouldn't find solace without knowing the depth of darkness that bound us, nor would I ever fully grasp the consequences until my heart itched beneath the burden of burdens yet to be revealed. The smoke twisted and curled above our heads in ominous tendrils, stinging my eyes and gripping my lungs with its acrid bite. I barely noticed. All I could feel was the pounding of my heart echoing the chaos around me, each beat a reminder of Marco's reckless departure, spiraling into the heart of danger. "Clara, we need to get you out of here." Leo's voice cut through the haze, urgent and sharp, but my feet felt anchored to the ground, a part of me still reaching for the fragments of the past. Before all of this, when danger felt distant and love seemed untainted, I could see Alessandro's jaw tense as he turned slightly toward Leo, his body shaking with the aftershocks of uncertainty. "We can't leave him." His voice was a mix of heartbreak and fury, each syllable a crack in the facade he'd meticulously crafted. But while the air crackled with impatience, the reality was undeniable. Marco was no longer the boy I had known. He was lost, absorbed into shadows that promised nothing but pain. Each moment seemed to stretch into infinity, the world now calibrated to the potential for tragedy lurking just beyond our grasp. "That's exactly what he wants," I began, but was silenced by the roar of flames that echoed through the plaza, growing closer. People surged past us, their faces twisted in terror, and the weight of the scene threatened to crush the breath from my lungs. "Clara!" Leo barked, shaking me from my stupor. "We need to move." A sudden fear gripped my heart. "But what about there's no time?" he insisted. "Well, come back for him." As he dragged me away from the scene, I couldn't help but feel as though I were leaving a part of myself behind. The truth clawed at my insides. This was no ordinary fight. It twisted itself around the very fabric of who we were, binding us with strands of love and despair that threatened to suffocate, but I could not turn back. It was as if some monstrous tide was pulling at my heart, urging me to fight against the current yet driving me forward into a world filled with unknown horrors. I struggled against Leo's hold, feeling the rush of guilt breach my resolve. I wanted to scream out for Marco, but the words were swallowed by the flames licking hungrily at the sky like a ravenous beast, and then an explosion roared through the night, its force knocking me and Alessandro to the ground. Within the chaos, the ground felt treacherous, the world tilting at a precarious angle that promised only further disarray. I could hear the cries of people echoing in the backdrop, rising higher, each echo a reminder of the danger pinning us together. "Are you okay?" Alessandro's voice broke through my fog, worry etched across his handsome features as he pulled me beneath him for protection, the flames casting his shadow long against the crumbling wall. "That is Marco okay?" I replied, my voice trembling. I felt a pang of guilt ripple through me at the thought of leaving him behind, each heartbeat reminding me of the warmth we used to share. "He's not our responsibility," Leo interjected, giving me a sharp look. "We need to focus on keeping you safe." His words felt like shards of ice piercing my heart. "How can we not care? He's family." Alessandro shot back, frustration boiling in his voice. "He abandoned us." I paused, capturing the churning maelstrom of emotions close to my heart, feeling them shift like sand underfoot. "We can't write him off. Not like this." Before Alessandro could respond, the crowd surged again, panic elevating once more. Somewhere behind us, chaos erupted as the stress reached a boiling point, and people began to push past one another, desperate to escape the inferno. "We have to go," Leo shouted once more, his voice now layered with an urgency that sent chills racing down my spine. The heat from the fire intensified, pushing us further from the epicenter of chaos, tearing at the threads that had just begun to weave my heart back together. "Clara." Alessandro grasped my arm, his eyes flashing with an intensity that pulled me out of my spiral. "We can find him later. Right now, you have to trust us." Trust floated through the air, palpable yet elusive, as I fought to balance my instinct to save Marco with the urgency to protect those who remained. Alessandro, the brotherhood they forged, Leo's fierce determination. Without thinking, I nodded, forcing my legs to follow Leo's lead as he propelled us deeper into the wings of night. But inwardly, trepidation crested like a wave, threatening to consume me whole. I couldn't shake the disquiet stealing through my mind, questioning every choice we made, carving deeper fissures into the fragile bonds we'd constructed amongst the confusion. As we veered around a corner, breathless from the exertion and fear, I caught a glimpse of something darting into the Shadowsa figure, indistinct but hauntingly familiar. My heart stuttered in my chest. "Wait." I pulled back, feeling an invisible thread tugging at me, strong and unyielding. "I saw something." "No, Clara," Leo insisted, his grip tightening around my arm. "We have to move." But the resolve within me ignited. I couldn't let go of hope, not when it felt as tangible as the warmth of Alessandro's hand brushing against mine. "Just for a moment," I urged, tapping into whatever strength had gotten me through this turmoil. "Please." As Leo hesitated, Alessandro's eyes pierced through mean understanding softened beneath the intense layers of fear. Together, we edged closer to where the figure had disappeared into the night, then a scream cut through the air, raw and unfettered, sending shudders racing down my spine. That voice, it was unmistakable. "Marco." Before I could muster a response, Leo lunged forward. Alessandro and I followed suit, driven by an instinct we couldn't quite ignore, a tether forged in desperation as we raced into the dark, but the shadows were closing in quicker than I had anticipated. The air was thick with smoke and uncertainty as we stumbled into yet another terrifying twist of fate. As I turned the corner, the last shred of safety vanished, leaving only dread and the chilling echoes of Marco's voice trailing on the wind. "Clara." He called again, the cry spiraling into a haunting plea that echoed within the dying light that in that moment, I realized we were not merely running from flames or shadows but towards a revelation that no one could escape. The darkness was consuming, and with every step I took, I feared the horror of what it might reveal, leaving us all shattered in its wake. The scream still echoed in my ears as I stumbled into the looming darkness, my heart racing and lungs burning with every frantic breath. Marco's voice reverberated in my mind, a mix of anguish and desperation that ignited a flicker of resolve deep within. We couldn't lose Heimer, perhaps it was more accurate to say, I couldn't lose him. "Clara, hold on," Alessandro commanded, his face a mask of determination as he pulled me along. The smoke swirled in thick clouds around us, and I could feel panic pressing against my chest like a vice. Leo ran ahead, guiding us through the wreckage and chaos that had become our reality, but my feet felt leaden, betraying me with each hesitant step. How could I possibly be moving forward when every fiber of my being was screaming for me to turn back? "Over here." Marco's voice pierced through the smoke, filled with a raw need that shot through me like a lightning bolt. I could barely see anything in this swirling haze, but the urgency in his voice drew me deeper, like a moth to a flame, though I desperately feared that joining him would consume me whole. Together, we rounded a crumbling wall and found ourselves in a narrow alley, debris scattered like forgotten memories. I glanced over at Alessandro, who wore an expression of defiance mixed with apprehension. I knew he wanted to trust me, and in this moment, I clung to that as tightly as I did the hope of finding Marco. "Clara," came Marco's voice again, breaking through the cacophony of despair. "I need you, stay here." Leo barked, halting abruptly, pulling me back. "We can't just rush in," but I felt my heart pull away from him, sensing Marco's need echoing through the chaos. "No, we have to go," I cried, ripping my arm free from Leo's grip, determination hardening my resolve. The alley stretched ahead, shadows dancing among the rubble, and every instinct urged me deeper into the void. I didn't care about the flames that flickered at the edges of the plaza, or the chaos that terrified everyone else. I was paralyzed by the vision of Marco, a specter I could not leave behind. "Clara." Marco's voice cracked, fragmented by fear and desperation, and my heart seized as I pushed ahead, scrambling over debris, feeling the weight of Alessandro's presence close behind me. With each step, I felt closer to the essence of Marco, to the boy who had become my universe, the boy I feared was lost irrevocably. "Stay close," Alessandro urged, yet I could see his own eyes flaring with dread as he escorted me deeper into danger. I quickened my pace, instinctively searching for the form of my brother, until at last, I reached the edge of the alley and stopped. There he was, Marco. His frame leaned against the crumbling bricks of a gutted building, the shadows casting jagged lines across his once familiar face, now gaunt and hollow. But it was not just his appearance that caused my heart to claw for the truth, it was the vulnerability that oozed through the cracks of his bravado. My chest tightened at the sight of him, caught between the grip of vulnerability and defiance. "Marco!" I screamed, reaching out to him, desperation pouring from my heart. That he looked at me with wide eyes, fear mingling with relief, before he stepped forward. "Clara, you shouldn't have come." The weight of his words fell upon me like a shroud, sealing the truth in each syllable. "Like I could leave you here." I stepped forward, feeling the flames lap at our backs, creeping ever closer. The shadows threatened to swallow him whole, yet I felt something strange shift within me. "Please, just go," Marco pleaded, stepping backward as if every inch between us was soaked in guilt. "You don't understand what I've done." The air thickened around us, suffocating my attempt to reach him. "Then explain." "I don't care. I just want you back." I stepped closer, but he recoiled, anguish reflecting in his eyes, a tempest of emotions I did not yet grasp. "That I am not the same, Clara," Marco shouted, his voice breaking against the crackling backdrop of destruction. "I've become someone you can't save." A new wave of emotion crashed over me as the breeze shifted, carrying the acrid scent of smoke mixed with something else. "Betrayal." "You're still my brother," I cried, desperation clutching at my heart. "You are not lost to me, I am," he insisted, turning away. "You don't know what's at stake. I can't let you drown in this in me." Just as he spoke, the night exploded with another deafening sound, the structure of a building collapsing somewhere beyond our small enclave of desperation. The tremors ripped through the ground, and instinctively, I reached out. "Marco, please." I begged anew, a surge of unconditional love coursing through my veins as I reached for him. But as our fingers nearly brushed, a flicker of a silhouette emerged from the shadows behind him. Another figure, grim and purposefully menacing. "Step away from him," a voice commanded from the darkness, deep and laced with malice. Instinctively, my heart dropped as I recognized the figure cloaked in shadows, its icy eyes hauntingly familiar. My breath clung to my throat, caught between fear and the thrill of recognition. "Felix," the first murmured, the name escaping my lips like a shatter of glass. Marco's eyes widened in horror, desperately searching mine for answers I did not possess. The ultimate betrayal burned its way through the air as he stood between us, fractured by the weight of a choice that threatened to unravel everything. "Clara, no. I can't let you," Marco began, but the specter cast its malevolence upon us, igniting the air around us with treachery. My heart raced, torn between the urgency to embrace the brother I had thought lost and the anguish of facing a truth I couldn't yet comprehend. This wasn't just about saving Marco. It was now about our survival in a world that wanted to consume us whole. As Felix advanced, a malicious grin curling his lips, I felt time slow, the shadows deepening around us, as the realization hit nothing would be the same after this night, and in the heartbeat that followed, a shroud of inevitability draped over us, whispering promises of loss and despair, leaving me teetering on the edge of something horrifying. Would I have to choose between my love for Marco and my desire to survive? The answers lingered in the air, a haunting veil over our destinies. The night was alive with chaos, the world around me spiraling into a dreadful echo of screams and destruction. I felt the ground tremble beneath us as Felix's shadow loomed ever closer, a sinister presence that taunted my very being. Every instinct screamed for me to protect Marco, to shield him from the darkness that threatened to drag him further into its abyss. "Clara, stay back." Marco's voice twisted in alarm. Yet there was a desperate plea hidden within it, a hope that I could escape the fate that was closing in on us. "Never. Not without you." I shot back fervently, my voice barely rising above the cacophony, but the energy of my determination pulsed through the air. I could almost grasp the solidness of our bond, that unbreakable thread that tied our souls together. Felix stepped closer, hatred dripping from his every word. "You think you can save him? You think love is enough to shield him from the choices he's made? You know nothing, Clara." The name tasted bitter on his tongue, and I felt a shiver crawl up my spine, a deep realization settling into the core of my being that I wanted to scream at him, to unleash my grief and anger while demanding answers. But with Marco beside me, I recognized that I had to navigate through the darkness without crumbling. I took a step forward, setting my jaw against Felix's venomous gaze. "What did you do to him?" I breathed, forcing the words past my clenched throat. For a split second, it was as if time had frozen. Marco's gaze bore into mine, pleading and fierce-like, his emotions swirling like smoke, and I was left fighting against the fierce tide that threatened to swallow us whole. But Felix's laugh shattered the moment, a dark sound that twisted into the fabric of the night. "The truth is in his blood, Clara. He chose to surrender to me." "This is what he wanted," Felix spat, his voice tinged with delight, reveling in the power he wielded over us. "You thought you could save him from this life? You, the girl who dreams of heroes while he dwells among monsters. You're mistaken." Just beyond him, a flicker of movement pulled my attention. It was Alessandro, quietly edging toward us, worry clouding his face. With him, I felt the faintest glimmer of hope, a lifeline in a storm. "Clara, Marco," he breathed, urgency etched in his every word. "We need to leave. Now." "Alessandro, no. I can't leave him." I screamed, desperation clawing at my throat. "I can't let you stay here." Alessandro's voice erupted with a need to protect, a fierce resolve that sent the pulse of adrenaline spiraling through me. "Felix won't hesitate to use whatever he can against you, against both of you." This is not just about family anymore, it's about survival. Alessandro Marco's voice flickered like a dying flame, and my heart ached at the stark fear that laced his words. You don't understand. If you take her away, he trailed off, a heavy weight hanging in the air. You need to fight back together. Clara, Marco, you have to remember who you are. Alessandro shouted back, his voice a fierce beacon amid the engulfing shadows. Felix's grin widened, an insidious light dancing in his eyes. Fight back. How can he when he's already stepped into the darkness willingly? You, he said, pointing directly at me, will only descend with him. Panic surged through me. Marco! I cried, desperate for a response, a flicker of defiance within him. You have to choose. You don't really want to be here, do you? In that moment, I struggled to see past the layers of guilt and despair that clung to his features. You don't know, Clara. I don't know if I can escape this, he admitted, his voice breaking under the weight of his admission. A crack of thunder rumbled overhead, and with it, I sensed the world shifting beneath our feet. You can. Don't listen to him. I urged, feeling the strength of my emotions pouring from my heart, desperate to weave my love around his, to anchor him back to me. We're stronger together. Before Marco could respond, Felix surged forward, his eyes alight with madness. Enough! He roared, his voice echoing through the chaos like the snap of a whip, breaking everything left untouched. The earth trembled as dust and debris fell like confetti around us, and instinctively, I reached for Marco's hand, my fingers trembling as they brushed against his. For a moment, I thought I could pull him back, perhaps even reel him away from the brink. But my grasp faltered, I could feel his hesitation clashing against my resolve. Felix raised his hand, and behind him, shadows flickered like hungry wolves, ready to pounce. Each breath felt heavier than the last, the air thickening with unspeakable tension. You think you can fight for him? Choose him. He hissed, advancing with a predatory grace. It'll make you regret it, girl, and so will he. Just as he lunged forward, a shattering explosion erupted from somewhere nearby, a wave of heat cresting over us, shifting the very foundation beneath our feet and forcing us all to stumble. The world fell into disarray, debris rained from above like hopeless stars falling from a shattered sky. Clara. Marco's voice rose above the chaos, filled with unfiltered fear. But the reality was clearer now. I was not just fighting for Marco's soul, I was battling against the very essence of darkness that had ensnared him. I and this maelstrom, our bond hung by a fragile thread, and I was left reeling as uncertainty wrapped its hands around my heart. As the dust settled and panic clawed at my senses, I found myself teetering between hope and despair, and I knew that what lay ahead would change us forever. Stay with me, Marco. I gasped, screaming into the tumult, grasping for the boy who had once been my anchor in the storm. But even as I felt our fingers brush together in the haze, the very ground beneath us began to unravel, and suddenly I realized sometimes love isn't enough to save someone from themselves. And just like that, amid the chaos and the falling debris, the darkness deepened, swallowing us whole until I could hardly tell where he ended, and I began. The twisted remnants of the world around us became a surreal canvas of shadows and whispers as Marco and I stood on the precipice of despair, our hands barely clasped together. The echoes of chaos faded into the background, replaced by the tumultuous rhythm of my own heartbeat, a drum of impending doom that resonated through my entire being. Clara, please, Marco's voice broke through, shaky and raw. My heart ached at the desperation woven into his plea, knowing he was teetering on the edge. I felt his internal battles like a storm brewing on the horizon, threatening to swallow us both. What do I do? I whispered, not just to him but to the universe, hoping for guidance amid the swirling confusion. I searched his eyes, craving a connection that was steadfast, something that might anchor us both amidst the swelling shadows. Felix's triumphant laughter sliced through the air, a sound that spoke of victory over hope. What a beautiful display of love! He taunted, the malice in his tone suffocating. But Clara, love is only a fleeting moment. It cannot conquer what has already claimed him. His words lashed at my heart, igniting a fire of determination deep within me. I couldn't let him win, not now, not ever. I turned to Marco, desperation mingled with fierce hope. You have to fight him. You're so much stronger than this. The shadows that suffocated him trembled for a moment, flickering like candlelight was that resolve I saw in his eyes. I don't know if I can. He cried, anguish twisting his features. But before I could respond, the ground rumbled violently beneath us, and the world split open with a crack that sent waves of panic crashing over me. A deep chasm threatened to swallow everything whole, and I clutched Marco's hand tightly, my voice rising in a crescendo of fear. We can face this together. Remember who you are. Just then, a sharp chill wrapped around us, and Alessandro threw himself toward us. Clara, we need to run. He grabbed my arm with a fierce grip, his eyes darting between Marco and Felix, weighing our choices with urgent precision. No. I cried out, my resolve hardening. I can't leave him. The world around me seemed to vibrate with intensity, every inch of my soul screaming to protect the scraps of love we still held on to. Clara, listen to me. Alessandro's voice cracked with intensity, yet his gaze held a softness, an understanding that pierced through my defiance. You can help him more by getting to safety. He's walking a path that will destroy him. The fracture of our world only widened, a gaping maw of darkness that loomed ever closer. I saw flashes of what could be Marco slipping further and further from the light, consumed by Felix's creeping grasp, and an inhuman scream that echoed from somewhere deep within him. Yet still, I hesitated. I can't just leave him. I won't abandon him. He needs me. Amidst the tension, Marco's expression shifted, a faint glimmer of resolve piercing through the layers of shadow. Clara, he murmured, the warmth of his voice wrapping around me like a fragile lifeline. If you believe in me, if you truly think I can find my way back, then you must trust me. Please. His words were infused with desperation and vulnerability, a thread of hope interwoven with fear. But the moment was fleeting, like an autumn leaf caught in a gust of wind. Felix's mocking laugh filled the air, a chilling reminder of the power he wielded. It's too late, Marco. You're as good as mine. Suddenly, a cold lurch of urgency gripped me. I could feel the swirling chaos coalesce into something darkly powerful, pulling at the edges of our lives like tendrils of smoke seeking to engulf us entirely. I turned to Marco, locking my gaze onto his, willing every ounce of my love into that moment. I won't let go, I vowed, my voice imbued with fierce conviction. But before he could respond, an unexpected figure entered the storm, a flicker of warmth against the chill of despair. A brave girl, no older than 16, shoulder-length hair shifting with the wind, darted from the shadows like a ray of sunlight. This way! She shouted, motioning. Frantically, with an urgency that shattered my moment of hesitation, Alessandro took a step forward, and confusion knitted his brow. Who are you? Ignoring him, her gaze locked onto mine, and for a brief moment, time warped, as though she knew the magnitude of the decision before us. You have to trust me. There's still a chance to turn this around. The chasm threatened to eat away at us, and just as I contemplated following her, a deafening roar echoed behind us. Felix unleashed a wave of pure fury, shadows swarming like a tidal wave, ready to consume everything. Clara! Marco shouted, and the fear lacing his voice sliced through me. In that fleeting heartbeat, I glimpsed the depths of his soul, the storm raging within as he staked his own fate against Felix. Without another thought, I gripped his hand tighter, heart racing, just as I felt the world threatening to part us. I took a step toward the girl, uncertainty swirling in my chest. I'll fight for you, Marco. I won't let Felix win. But as we pivoted, the shadows surged forward, and an unanticipated force reverberated through the air. It shattered the delicate moment, pushing me away from Marco. Time slowed as I felt the grip between us weaken, my heart wrenching as our fingers slipped apart, the boy I loved pulled back into the abyss and the girl's eyes widened in fear. The weight of despair crashed down relentlessly, propelling me into a vortex of horror as I was swept away, the world collapsing around me. Somewhere within the chaos, a flicker of light pierced through the darkness, a profound choice that lay before me, but the shadows had claimed their first victim. And in that instant, chaotic limbs of darkness wrapped around Marco, love barely whispering its plea. I clung to hope, knowing with every fiber of my being that the fight was far from over. I awoke to cold hands gripping my shoulders, jolting me back to reality with a force that sent adrenaline pulsing through my veins. My heart thundered in my chest, the chaos of the night still buzzing in my ears like angry bees. The world around me was trapped in a veil of darkness, shadows folding in and out like a dance of death. "Clara, breathe," Alessandro urged, his voice fiercely protective as he knelt beside me, eyes scanning for danger. "Focus on me." I willed myself to obey, locking onto his gaze, sinking into the stormy blue depths that offered comfort amidst the mayhem. "Marco." The name escaped my lips in a desperate whisper, each syllable laced with the bittersweet weight of love and urgency. The moment hung heavy between us, the sky seeming to sigh in unison with our fears. "I'm here. We are going to find him," Alessandro promised, but the tremble in his voice betrayed his uncertainty. "We need to get away." "No," I interrupted, the steel of my resolve hardening my voice. "I won't leave him. I can't abandon him again." I felt the gravity of the past urging me forward, every regret a push against my back, while the shadows loomed unrelenting. The dim reality of a world without Marco enveloped me, unbearable and suffocating. Alessandro's face contorted with anguish. "Clara, please. This is so much bigger than you think. If we don't move now, we might both end up lost." The fear in his eyes ignited a flicker of panic, but in the depths of that unbearable dread burned another emotion, a flame of fury fueled by love. "Then we fight," I declared, my heart soaring in defiance. "Together. We won't let him go without a fight." Leo emerged from the shadows, his presence grounding yet palpable with anxiety. "If we're going to do this, then we need a plan." His eyes softened as he glanced between us, fierce determination igniting in his voice. "But it cannot just be about the three of us. We need help, we need the others." A vision of Marco flickered in my mind, his grin, infectious laughter, the bond forged through years of wanting, allowing him to shape my heart. "We're going to pull him back." The words felt like an incantation, cloaked in unyielding resolve. "We have to find Marco before it's too late." We moved as one unit, navigating through the debris-laden streets filled with the echoes of chaos. The city lurched in turmoil, every corner we turned a reminder of what was at stake, not just for Marco, for us all, and then I saw them, figures gathered in the shadows, huddled together as if planning an exodus. I rushed towards them, recognition blooming in my chest. "Friends. We need your help." They turned to reveal familiar faces, those who had once shared laughter and stories around firelight amidst the night's calm. The warmth of camaraderie ignited hope. "What's happened?" they asked, wide-eyed and unsure. "Marco needs us," I gasped, urgency demanding that my voice stay strong, unwavering against the dread curling at the edges of my thoughts. "Felix has him, and we have to fight to get him back." Whispers spread like wildfire among the group, shifting from fear to determination. They were with us, ready to stand against the tide of darkness that threatened to consume those we loved. As we bolstered our numbers, Leo stepped forward, his voice resonating with authority. "We go in together. We create a distraction to draw Felix out, then we get Marco. Clara, stay behind me." "But I need to be with him," I protested, fire igniting again from deep within. "I know," Leo said, nodding with understanding. "But you need to be alive to save him. We need you intact." With the fervor of a blossoming storm, we set off deeper into the chaos, hearts hammering in sync, each beat a pulse of courage resonating through the air. Every step felt closer to where Marco was bound, his presence still echoing through me like a heartbeat. In the darkest heart of the city, the showdown began as the shadows danced dangerously close. The air thickened with swirling energy, confusion flaring as adversaries clashed around us. The roars of chaos blended, merging into a symphony of fear and defiance, but among it all, I felt Marco's presence growing stronger, the bond we shared tethering me to him, pulling me like a compass towards the truth wrapped in heartbreak and uncertainty. Clara. Watch out! Alessandro shouted, pulling me to the side just as a shadow lunged towards us. In a swift movement, I reached for a nearby debris-laden weapon, gripping it with newfound determination. I felt the heat of resolve wash over me, transforming fear into strength as I stepped forward, side by side with Alessandro and Leo. Marco! I called out, voice rising above the clamor, desperation weaving itself into the fabric of the air. I'm here. We're coming for you. The shadows rippled as I felt a shift of familiar warmth flickering like a flame in the depths of my being. Everything around me stretched as I fought against the tide of fear colliding with hope. Fight, Marco. Remember, in that instant, the chaos fell silent, the storm drawing still around me as a piercing scream broke free from the abyss, a soul entwined in despair rising against the shadows. Clara. The word cut through the air like a knife, shattering the darkness. I felt a sense of clarity blooming in my chest, a rippling force that surged throughout the chaos, a wave echoing through memories that we had crafted together, a reminder that love defied even the sharpest edges of fate. Without thinking, I lunged forward, following that call, my heart thrumming with every ounce of hope. I'm coming. Hold on. As I raced deeper into the fray, shadows enveloped me, but they felt ephemeral, unable to consume the fire coursing through my veins. I pushed onwards, fueled by the possibility of reclaiming the soul that had always been my lighthouse in the storm. Suddenly, I broke through, arriving at the eye of the storm, a haunting figure standing before a rift of darkness, Marco's silhouette twisted within. Marco! I shouted, tears stinging my eyes. His head turned towards me, expression anguished yet fierce, embers of recognition flickering like a distant star. Clara, don't! But before he could finish, Felix loomed closer, a dark shadow laughing, wielding despair like a weapon. Look at you, sweet boy. You think she can save you? You're lost to this world. No. I roared, firing back, fueled by desperation. You don't get to dictate what he's capable of. Felix stepped forward, but as he reached for Marco, the very shadows he commanded began to flicker, trembling beneath the radiance of hope and defiance surging from within. No. Marco cried out, his voice strained, caught in the currents tugging at his soul. And then, together, we roared back against the tide, our souls intertwining, throwing everything we had into the storm, the love we'd shared, the laughter echoing through time, the vows of courage against despair. The shadows recoiled, faltering as the light unleashed within us surged outward, a beacon flaring against the gathering storm. Earlier, I felt torn between two worlds, but now we moved as one, thrumming with the heartbeat of a singular bond. Fight! I screamed, reaching for him, the distance collapsing. We're not done. Marco's expression shifted, clarity sprouted like wildflowers bursting through concrete. Together we dispelled the shadows, his spirit igniting with unfurling strength. With one final push, he broke through the shroud of darkness, caught in my outstretched hand. We clung together amidst the chaos, love binding us fiercely, the shadows wavering before our incandescent glow. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty the darkness might have come for us, but together, we would always be stronger. Together, we found our way, and as the storm began to settle around us, I whispered, alone in the silence, "He'll always find you."